So I wrote Keep the Lantern Burning back in 2015, right before I moved to Nashville when I was 22. And I've been going to college at Oregon State, go Beavs. And I'd moved away to college, but I never moved away. And this was such a big step from before, because before I was at school and then I'd come home on the summers and I'd farm, and then I go back to school and then I have to go back periodically and farm, and it's a family farm. So it was always family centric and everybody's close, and you're sort of needed on the farm. And so making that big move to Nashville to pursue music was a big step. One that I had no idea how it was going to go. I knew that it would be transformative in some capacity, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how long I would be there. I didn't have a place to stay. I had a old Suburban that I packed all the stuff in, and pretty limited plans other than the route. So I've always been a very family-centered guy, and not that my family would forget about me once I moved away, but it was more kind of no matter what happens out there on this big adventure of mine, just going out solo, no matter what happens, you got to find that light that leads you back home. I mean, the whole song runs sort of my whole thought process through making that move, which is I've got the road stretched out before me, miles and miles to go before I rest. Stole that from a Robert Frost poem, Miles to Go. But, and about how, tell my family that I won't be gone forever, and to keep sort of that lantern burning and help me find my way back home once it's time to make my way back home. And I knew that to some degree, I had rose-colored glasses about it. Because, when you're young and you got a bunch of songs and you're full of hope and you're 22, so you've got unbridled enthusiasm, you go, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to go for it. But I also had the foresight to know that it wasn't going to be easy, and that there would be lots of sort of trials and tears and feeling at the end of my rope and running out of money, and I knew all that would come with it. Everybody says that becoming a musician or, making it as an artist isn't easy. And we all go, oh yeah, of course, we know it's not easy. But when it actually becomes hard, you go, I can't believe how hard this really is. It's like, well, what did you think it was going to be? This is hard. This is what hard feels like. Here you go. This is what you signed up for. We don't do this because it's easy. We do it because we thought it would be easy. But no, that's a joke. I knew that it would be tough and that I might fail, and that I may come home with my tail tucked between my legs, but I knew that my family would be there to welcome me back in as the prodigal son that I was. So that's what that song's about.
And what was the biggest lesson you learned in Nashville?
The biggest lesson I learned in Nashville was there's nobody with a golden ticket that is just going to go, wow, got the greatest songs ever. How about we give you $1 million? And I wasn't that naive in thinking that, but I really had a lot of confidence in the songs that I'd written at the time, including one that made top 6 for American Songwriter in the country category. So it's all right, I think I've got something here. And I just remember I got there and I played so many open mics, and ones where you had to call, some you had to show up, some you had to call in, and often I was sharing the stage with 4 other people at 2 a.m. The one that I went to the most, a pretty famous open mic and music venue, Douglas Corner Cafe. You walk in there and you see pictures of Garth Brooks and Taylor Swift and Reba and Blake Shelton, they're all up on the walls, and you go, I'm going to be up on that wall. And then you play to, you're going second in the second group to last, and you're just playing for other musicians and the guy running the open mic, and you go, and you just do this over and over again. And I was working at a bookstore and just realizing that pretty much no one's going to come give it to you. You just got to go and get it yourself. And ultimately, I ran out of money. But that was the lesson, is that, especially in this day and age where there's internet and Spotify, and so you're able to go get it yourself as opposed to waiting for the big man in a white Cadillac smoking a cigar to come along and say, son, I really like your songs. Here's a record contract, and you're going to be a rich man.
Was the lantern burning when you got home?
It was. The lantern was burning when I got home. So I'm from the Pacific Northwest, a little town called Dayton, about an hour from the Oregon coast and sort of the northern part of the state, about an hour south of Portland. But luckily, based on the route that I took, I was able to go through Bend, Oregon, where I've got family, and so, but none of them knew that I was coming. Got there a little bit early before everybody else got there, so I had to kind of wait for about an hour before I made the big reveal. And then, because they all knew I was in Nashville, of course, we had a big going away party and everything, and it just so happened to be, I think, my cousin's graduation. And so I was able to drop in on them and perhaps usurp the party a little bit, which was not my intention, but total surprise them. And yeah, they welcomed me back, and it was great.
In the song, you talk about tears and learning. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so the line is, know that on my journey, tears may fall sometimes, but that just means I'm learning something beautiful about this life. And I wrote that sort of with some foresight that kind of no matter what happened, good or bad and in between, this was going to be something I was going to be able to take with me looking forward. It's also another thing that, beyond just learning something beautiful about this life, which is the work that it takes and understanding how much you really miss the people that you love because you're no longer sort of close to them. So you're forced to actually not be able to get to them if you really miss them, and just how much you love them and love where you grew up and love sort of your roots. Beyond that, but it was also, if I didn't at least take a shot at Nashville, I would always be like, what if I had gone to Nashville? The question I end up asking myself when it comes to an opportunity is, will I regret not doing it? And that solves more problems for me than anything, because it's like, will I regret never even giving Nashville a shot and living there? The answer was yeah. So it's like, well, I was 22. Let's just move there without a plan, without a lot of money, and let's just give it a shot. And yeah, learned something beautiful about this life. I was able to take it back with me.
Sounds kind of like your journey to Arizona.
It is. Yeah, it's a lot like my journey to Arizona. You know, I think everybody sees himself in their own, everybody's the star in their own movie or book, novel, whatever. And they're all chapters. And some chapters are longer and some chapters are shorter, and some are brutal chapters and some are really fun chapters. Side note, you know, the more brutal chapters, this is what I try to remind myself if things really go awry and I'm in not a great spot. It's like, well, if nothing else, this is going to be a very interesting chapter. Nobody likes watching the drama where everything just goes well and just day in, day out, things are great. The only reason that we watch or read anything worth consuming is because there's conflict. And sort of the bigger the conflict, the more interesting the story, the more compelling the narrative. And So it was a lot like moving to Arizona, which has been another chapter of my life, and by far the biggest music chapter of my life. And that one's still being written, so it's been great.